episode 11.
Yeah, buddy. It's a big deal.
Yeah, man, chipping away. Coming up with some good ones, so we gotta keep that flow going, that momentum going.
I love it. I was talking to a member today, and he finally listened to one of our podcasts, and he's looking at me. He's like, so, like, why do people listen to podcasts? I was like, because, like, it threw me off. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, people, you should know. Yeah. I was like, I don't know. They like to multitask and learn. He's like, yeah, that's a good point, because I was driving when I was listening to it. I was like, okay. But he's so funny. He's European. He's a trip. But he said good things. I said, just whatever you do, don't listen to episode 1.
Yeah, go right to the later episodes. Give us a little
Give us a chance to learn.
Yeah, no, that's good. What is the point of a podcast? To develop yourself, listen to someone that, you believe knows what they're talking about and see if you can get some takeaways from them.
That's funny, because for me, when I listen to podcasts myself, is that if I can just walk away with one or two things, I'm happy. Because most of the time we are multitasking when we do this, so we can't write a bunch of notes. And for me, that's really hard. I feel like I'm in school again, sitting behind a desk. So being able to move is great. So for me, I reduce that pressure of trying to remember a lot by just saying, if I can come away with a takeaway, one or two things that I can apply and execute in my life, the podcast was worth my time.
Yeah, that's really good, because I'll catch myself busting out my phone on the notes, trying to every little sentence,
Yeah, well, you get anxiety, right?
Yeah, it's like, missing stuff. You don't want to miss stuff, but yeah, if you can take 1-2 takeaways, that's good. And I mostly listen to podcasts when I'm either in a car, okay, or like, doing some cardio outside, make it, 2 birds, 1 stone.
Yeah, you talked about the lunges. That's probably the most dominant or the most often way I've been listening to podcasts lately is through the 400-meter lunges that we're weekly doing. So it's great.
Yeah, you're making more useful of your time.
So it's good, man. You're talking about all this hype about March Madness and all this stuff. I don't have that excitement you have for it.
Yeah, I mean, college basketball, it really, really gets fun when March Madness starts. It's a huge NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, FGCU didn't make it this year.
Dang.
They had a championship game last week, and they were actually losing by 30.
Wow.
But then they brought it back to within 6 and then still lost. But if they would have won that, they would have made it.
How many seeds? What is the top what?
There's 32 teams, I believe,
that make it to it, and there's pre-qualifications. Basically,
don't quote me on that. There might be more than that,
okay.
But I know there's got to be way more than 32. I don't know, but anyways,
there's definitely a limit.
Yeah. There's a big chunk of teams in there, and you'll occasionally have these, they call these Cinderella teams, where there'll be like a smaller school in a smaller conference, and they'll go out and they'll face these big basketball powerhouses, Kansas, North Carolina, Duke. And it's just entertaining, man. You see a bunch of buzzer beaters, stuff like that.
Well, that was FGCU, right? Like 6-7 years ago, where they went pretty far, like top 8 or something like that.
Yeah, we did. We made it to the Sweet 16.
That's what it was.
And we were going in as a 15 seed, and we beat a number 2 seed, which was Georgetown at the time.
Wow.
And
that's exciting.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Was it hype everywhere?
Yeah, it was so awesome. I was fortunate enough to be there during that time. Like you always talk about being at Florida during the Tebow era.
Yeah,
I was at FGCU during this Sweet 16 run.
The energy is crazy.
So I started FGCU about a year before that. So that was my second year there. And then I just watched that school completely transform, quadruple in enrollment.
Growth, enrollment.
Yeah.
Building.
We were that week of the Sweet 16, we made like $1 million in T-shirts sales
crazy
alone.
For that. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, just college hoops, man. It's good. It's I was watching today, kind of reminiscing about my youth sports days, not basketball, but just when I was a student athlete, so to say. And it turns out today we're going to bring on that topic about how athletics brought me and you both to where we are today.
Yeah, but looking back on my own life, I think that even as a little child, like we, like what people consider athletics for us was play. Like it was throw the football around, it was play a pickup basketball game at the basketball court. Like those things, as we got older, turned into more organized. Like, there's coaches and there's leagues and there's weekly competitions. But really, all those things, I think, have really helped us both succeed in achieving the things that we've set because of the qualities that sport has provided to us.
Yeah, and there's just countless. There's so many. So I feel like our topic's going to deliver a lot of value to our listeners. And I know you're a big wrestler. How old were you when you started wrestling?
Dude, I didn't start till high school, believe it or not.
Were you doing anything like younger, like Little League Baseball or anything like that?
I did Pop Warner football.
For who?
Gators. When they were the Gators.
I was a Knoll, so.
Oh, sorry. Gators were dominant. I think they won a national championship like 2 years into my sophomore year in high school. They won or my freshman year maybe. They won a national championship.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so they were pretty dominant. Those were those guys that helped us later win a state championship in high school.
Was it your choice to play Pop Warner football, or your mom kind of?
No, my mom was deathly afraid of it. It was the first organized sport I've ever played. Outside of that, it was just me playing outside as a kid.
So you just wanted to do it and went for it?
I did. I mean, I've always been competitive, but a lot of my friends were doing it as well. So I think it was just an easy transition for me because if your friends are doing something, you're more likely to do it, especially if you like playing sport or doing anything like that. But I was always undersized. I was the undersized kid. I was the overweight kid. But I was just athletic enough to compete with some of the best. And I think that's why I continue to enjoy it. Because, as you know, we say this all the time. If you suck at something, you really don't enjoy it. And I just remember enjoying it a lot.
What position in Pop Warner football?
You're going to laugh.
I was center or something like that?
Oh, my God. Not center. I was nose guard.
Nose guard. I could definitely see
nose guard. So I can get in quick. I was like a lace tackler. Like, I'd miss them at the top, but I'd get them on the ankle. And then that turned into fullback as I got older because I was a little bit bigger. I had some quick speed. And, again, it was just getting into the hole. And
you definitely have the body type for a nose guard and a fullback for sure.
Yeah, man.
Short, stocky.
It was fun, but eventually, I had to come to the reality that like I wasn't gonna grow anymore, and so that's how wrestling, going back to the initial convo, was like my legitimate, like, heart and soul sport because, believe it or not, it helped level the playing field for me because I can compete against other individuals in my weight class, and not only that, I was a natural at it. Like one of those things where the coach would show you a move, and then he'd see you do it, and he's looking at you like, "You've done this before, bro?" And I was like, "No, like I've never done this."
It just came quick. It clicked.
Yeah, and it was the same thing. I had a really good buddy of mine who wanted to wrestle, and he got us into it because his cousin was wrestling, and we were just good enough to do it. We liked it enough that because we were good enough to do it, that we actually committed ourselves to it.
Yeah, the relationships you grow in sports is just it's unmatchable. To this day, majority of my friends I met through football or baseball.
Childhood friends in sport that turned into really good friends. You played a bunch of sports, though. I know you were a pretty legit football player in high school. You went and played for one of those preps. What are those preppy schools in town called?
St. John Newman, Catholic school.
Catholic school. Did you guys actually do prayer and all that stuff in school? You had to?
We actually had a mass every Wednesday.
Wow.
We had to go to church.
I see you just jacking around in mass.
I was a little bit falling asleep, but.
And you said you were a baseball player. I never understood that sport.
It's a lot more fun to play than to watch. That's for sure. But I was actually pretty good at baseball.
What position did you play?
Center field.
Nice.
Center field.
A little bit of everything out there.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like you got the whole outfield to kind of cover, and I still am decently fast, but I was pretty fast back then. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask me, what were you better at, football or baseball? And I still don't really know the answer for that.
Really interesting.
I was pretty decent at both.
I'd ask your friends.
Yeah, but I don't think they could give you an answer either.
Really?
Yeah.
No, there's no doubt I was a better wrestler than football player. No doubt. But again, they're completely different sports, so who knows? But I think that goes into that first initial thought that we were talking about is like once you start getting older and you get into organized sport, things become a little bit more serious. And with that seriousness, you have to learn a lot of different things that make you, if you want to be successful. And that first quality, I think that we both agreed initially, was how it developed discipline. And that we realized that in sport, that to do it well and to be successful, you just got to keep doing it consistently. Like, no matter how you feel, regardless of, how sore you are, or how tired you are, or the loss you had the weekend before, you still got to get up the next day and continue to put in the effort. And it's such a great skill for us to have learned at such an early age, because it's one that, as coaches now, what we would just see as obvious, a lot of new members struggle with, because they don't understand the value of discipline, how to overcome their emotions sometimes, to be able to just keep doing what is necessary to get them to where they truly want to be.
Yeah, the transition from our younger youth sport days to getting more mature, getting to high school varsity sports, that's when you got to kind of fine tune some things to get, hey, this is serious now. There's a lot on the line. People take, high school sports very competitively. So preparation, there's so much preparation. That's what goes hand in hand with the discipline. Mm-hmm. From a football standpoint, I think of discipline. I think of, going out, doing a 2-a-day, in the Florida heat, day after day after day, no matter how sore you are, no matter how tired you are, you're still committed to do that, and that takes discipline. And then in your, from a wrestling standpoint, some weight cuts you do. Like, anytime I talk about wrestling or I hear about wrestling, I never did it. My dad did it. My dad was actually a state champ wrestler for New Jersey.
Nice.
He got a full ride scholarship to Georgia.
Wow.
So he tells me some wrestling stories here and there. But what I give you wrestlers the utmost credit for is that weight cut. I feel like so much, energy and, mental toughness has to go into a weight cut. Because, I've done some stuff in fitness-wise, to where you have to cut weight or water cut as well. Mm-hmm. And that takes the utmost discipline.
Yeah, it consumes your overall life from a physical standpoint to a mental standpoint as well. And a lot of times I did it wrong, Brett. I think that, I had to make it
too extreme, or
too extreme, or I didn't, prepare ahead enough, and now I'm 2 days out from competition and I have 15 pounds to lose. So I had to make a lot of mistakes about learning how to weight cut, to say, listen, like, I can't keep doing this if I want to perform well or like enjoy it, right? Because sometimes what would happen is that if you did it improperly, it would take a joy around. It would remove the joy from everything that you really loved about this sport, because you weren't preparing, you weren't being disciplined enough to just take care of the details.
Yeah, that's good. That's your process of weight cutting isn't as thorough and fluently when it's taking away the joy from actually competing, because that's why you do it in the first place, because you enjoy to do it.
Right.
Okay. So if you're getting away from enjoying the process by doing something that's a little too extreme, I could totally feel like it'll kind of turn you off on competing.
It did. And so one of those other qualities that being an athlete helped me create was this idea of goal setting, right? Like, in the beginning of the season, where did I want to compete at, and how was I going to get there? What was I going to do on a weekly basis to make sure that I can meet those goals? Make sure, with wrestling, like, there are clear defined goals from a weight perspective. I have to weigh an exact weight, or I cannot compete on a weekly basis. So there was always that, like, it was always in your face that there were goals along the way. And towards the season, like, as athletes, the ultimate goal of all athletes is to be the best. Whether for me it was becoming a wrestling state champ, or for you guys to compete really well in the area and to go as high as possible, if not win a state championship yourself. And that was the ultimate goal for us. And so basically, we had to break those goals down throughout the season to make sure that we were giving our best chance to succeed at the end of the year.
Yeah, the goal setting introduction during that time basically is, something we talk about all the time. Reflection. It's to evaluate where you are now, what you did previously, your performance previously, and how you can get better. I'm just kind of getting all these memories, flowing through my head. My senior year of baseball, my junior year, we made it to the state Final Four. Okay.
Wow.
So my senior year, when we're goal setting, it's like, hey, if we don't get better and move past the state Final Four, it's a failure, And that's some high expectations for an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, the whole goal setting, the intro was right around that time. As we're maturing in our varsity sports, we're more self-aware on the importance of goal setting and not try to, be at a standstill. Okay,
For sure.
Not get any better, or even worse, go backwards.
Yeah, and it delivers motivation because, like, without goals, not just in sport but in life, like, you just feel like you're running circles, right? Like, if we hadn't set those goals during the season, then, like, we couldn't attach to win or losses, right? It's a game, right? And I think competition is more than that. It's being able to set some expectations that don't currently exist and not even sure whether they're possible, and to really push through and fight through that to see if you can even make that come alive. And it's literally creating something that doesn't exist and make it exist. And that's the beauty for me of goal setting in sport, is that you really don't know what's going to happen, but you're trying to do everything you can to give yourself the greatest possible opportunity to succeed. And that's what goal setting does.
Yeah, and then, following the goal setting, it comes down to being prepared, putting in the work, and what I like to say is being over-prepared. What we talked about off air a little earlier, being over-prepared. I've had some coaches that would put every single small scenario in a game into our heads in practice. Now, the likelihood of that very small specific scenario reaching in a game, okay, was very small, slim to none. But the fact that we've been there in practice, and I'm talking baseball specifically, but my baseball coach would, honestly, he'd take some music on the loudspeaker, turn it really up, like, kind of just get the whole obnoxious, like, fans yelling and stuff, try to just do his best he could to replicate a game time scenario.
Wow.
Okay? So then, we're so prepared that if any situation comes during the game, we're not going to miss a beat because we've been there, we've over-prepared, and with that over-preparedness comes the confidence.
That's so funny because my high school wrestling coach would do the same thing. And at the day before a match, he would lay us all down at the end of a practice. He'd make us close our eyes and go through an entire wrestling match together, almost every single scenario.
That's awesome.
You would think possible. So, yeah, I mean, it's a strategy. It's visualization 101. It's stuff that people are just starting to learn about, that we are like we've done this for a really long time. And there is a productive value to it as well, especially when you're trying to set goals. It like you says, it built a level of confidence knowing that, like, there's no surprises. Like, what if this happens? Like, if that scenario comes up, you're ready for it because you have over prepared to set yourself up in those situations. And I think that's something we learn through sport.
Yeah, if you're training all summer, and you're just day in and day out, waking up early, going to practice sometimes a couple times a day, going through these different scenarios, doing that to where your first game or your first match comes around 2 months later, okay, you're prepared. You're not gonna worry about what might happen because you've just been working your ass off the past 2 months, getting up to this moment. So you're not gonna flinch. You're not gonna flinch. And that's could be applied to anything. The more you prepare, the more confident you're gonna be.
That's good. That's really good, and that comes back to, like you saying, over preparing, knowing that we've been in these situations before, and that comes up to with a lot of our stuff when we talk about when we get injured, how do we handle that? What if you lose when you were trying to win? How do you handle that? You went and competed in a competition and you didn't do so well in our sport. Like, how do you handle that resolve? Um, it's really interesting, especially like when you think about like the CrossFit Games, like when they like people still don't. Someone asked me the other day when they do the open workout and they announce it, they didn't believe me when I said those two individuals they show live don't know the workout.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's tough to believe. It's
It
tough
is,
to
right?
believe, yeah.
But it's true.
Hmm.
And it's because imagine what they do. They over prepare, they're overcommitted, they've gone through all the movements, they wearing like every piece of gear possible because they don't know what's going to give to them, and they handle it decently well, right? A lot of them redo it because they want the extra rep or the faster time. But like if you were to throw someone else in there that hadn't prepared for anything and everything,
No,
they
worried
wouldn't.
sick. They'd be shivering. They'd be scared. Yeah, that's a good point. If you look at the facial expressions on, the people that are demoing the new open workout on the reveal, they don't look too worried when Castro's revealing the workout. If you look at their facial expressions, they're just okay. Let's do it. Like they're ready for it.
It's such a great point. It's just such a sign of a competitor. Like, they're thinking like, oh shit, this workout is going to be tough, and then they start to process through that. No, I got this. Okay, how? And they start to think about strategy and how to give them the greatest chance to succeed through that workout. And they have 8 minutes to warm up. It's the whole thing is crazy to me.
Yeah, I feel like the elite athletes. I've heard them say this numerous times. They try to make their practice or their training way more hell than the actual game day.
Right. So that during game day, it's like, come on, bro. No, I've been through worse.
Yeah,
I've been
exactly.
through worse. Yeah, for me, sport too was like, especially competition, was just to highlight what we were doing behind the scenes, right? It was like to show off what we do and who we are. Yeah, I think that's one of the other great characteristics of what sport has done for us. I think the other one that I've been thinking about lately with regards to being an athlete and what it's helped us with is how it's taught us how to be team players.
Yeah, no, that's good. Whenever I talk about team sports and, the glory days, you're always talking about, you said it early in the podcast, you and your buddy, you and your teammates, as young men, we're kind of learning what it's like to go to battle pretty much with our teammates, and you perform way better knowing you have people alongside you with the same goals in mind, and basically they got your back. They got your back on what you're doing. So you don't have that fear of doing, even though wrestling's one-on-one, you still have your team behind you, backing you, so you're not in it alone.
Yeah, and you need that. You need that moral support from them, especially when you're, 20 seconds left in a match and you got the dude's leg and you have to take him down. That support means everything, right? Because why be the best if you can't share it with anything? It's what we described in earlier podcasts, like the scenario being to get everything that you ever wanted. If I told you that right now and I snapped it and you got it, then I said the catch was that you can only do that on a deserted island. It would mean absolutely nothing. So the value of the team is what makes the journey and the experience so amazing, is that when you do finally get to that position where you accomplish something great that you wasn't sure was going to happen and you get to share it with him, it's a memory and a feeling we'll never forget.
Yeah, no, the celebration after, big win with your teammates, whether it's, all linking up at a house or something afterwards, that's almost, making those memories is almost just as good as actually winning the damn thing.
It is. And I think that what people forget about team sports is what it teaches you about learning how to be coached. And, I've said this before, it's one of my favorite quotes. Even Michael Jordan had a coach. And I think no matter how good you get, it's so important to understand how to learn, you have to remain coachable. And that coachability, for me, was learned through team sport, because there was always someone who was instructing me, who was critiquing me for my own, to help me become better. And when I looked at that individual as almost a mentor in my life, trying to, right, he's been in those shoes, I wanted to be like them. I wanted to make them proud. And in our training program, it's quite easy to know who's been an athlete, a prior athlete, and who hasn't, because they
The
might
level
not.
of coachability.
Their level of coachability, man. They get the purpose of coaching, right? Not the person who wants to come in and he wants to be a member at our gym, but he only wants open gym. Like, I don't want that client, because they really don't value coaching. They just, all they value is the space that our facility has been able to create, but not necessarily the coaching environment. And that's a sad reality for those people.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because to really excel to your fullest potential, you have to be coachable. You have to, go in with the mentality that you will always be learning something new. There's always opportunity for growth that you can't get alone. But you got someone that is a little bit above you that might, give you these little hints and tricks and, be on you, push you a little bit more. That comes down to being coachable, and there's not, just playing sports growing up, there's been plenty of players that had all this talent in the world, okay? But they weren't coachable, and they don't last in the sport long. They don't last long. They don't respond well to, coaching, to discipline, to anything. So they're like in and out, and it's wasted talent. And I've seen so much wasted talent, growing up like that, I played football with people that I honestly believe had the talent to make it to the NFL, but they didn't get any better because they weren't coachable.
Right.
And then when the coaches tried to get them better, they didn't adapt to it well, and they took it the wrong way.
Right.
And they end up quitting. How many times have you heard someone say they quit a sport because they didn't get along with the coach?
Yeah, you're like, was it the coach or was it?
Exactly. Was it the coach or was it you? Did you not, take the constructive criticism with open arms to try to get you better? Or were you like, I'm not going to listen to this guy tell me what to do?
Right. And that's what you had talked about in the last podcast, where there was a situation with a client where really the issue wasn't what you were saying to them, is they weren't getting that what you were trying to do, and that was to help them. And when you just kind of step back for a second to realize that and be able to connect with them again, now your words had more value, because that client understood that you weren't trying to be negative, you were actually trying to help them.
Yeah, no doubt. And, coachability is something, I could definitely tell you I caught on to myself. And that's why we are still progressing, and getting better and better, just because we are open to taking criticism the right way.
Yeah, there's a new prospect coach that we've been putting through our instructor training program, and he's a really great weightlifter. I know he moves better and he lifts a lot more than me. And so last week we were able to get a weightlifting session in, and for the first time in a really long time, I was actually being coached. Because for so long as a business owner and someone who runs a lot of the group classes, I do the coaching. I lead from the front. And getting coached for about 20 minutes on that one lift, we just spent 20 minutes on one lift, and through every single repetition, he would give me something to think about and consider. It made me grateful of that session, because what I realized is, because we're so motivated to help other people, the coaching is so important. And I was grateful for that session, and it made me realize that I need to get coached again. I need people to be there, because we create our own mentors through the reading and all the videos that we watch, but someone being there critiquing me
in action, you're doing a lift, he's saying something,
I missed it, and it was about like, man, I miss being coached. And that's the essence of coachability, is like, I wanted that. I was taking what he was saying and I was trying to apply that, and knowing that he was trying to make me better, and he would see that value as he coached me through it. It was cool. I walked out of there like, wow, I need to figure this out where I can put that in again so that I can be coached.
Yeah, and then it makes the individual way more likable when you understand, hey, they're open for new things. They're open to switch up their style to listen to what you have to say. It makes the individual way more likable.
And it's a feedback loop. I say this all the time. Like, there's a responsibility for our members, once we teach them something, to go help other people. Like, someone said today in our ITP, like, I don't, like, as we're teaching them how to be a coach, I don't want to step on your shoes if I say something to someone else in class. And I'm like, no, like, that's not what this is.
Mm-hmm.
We are all helping other people. And if you feel like there's something you could tell someone else as a member, as they know that you're becoming a coach in our own facility, that has productive value. Don't ever think you're stepping on my shoes. And I wanted to make that clear with them, because I didn't want them to think it's like it's what I say versus what you say. Like, that's not what we're doing here. The goal of coaching is to help make everyone better.
Yeah, what they're thinking is they just don't want to show you up. But if they're doing it with intentions to get the athlete better, who are you showing up?
The heart's in the right place. How
You're
can I
not
say
showing
no?
up any, but if you got, some Joe Schmo trainer that's trying to one up you, yeah, that's a different story. But like you just said, if your heart's in the right place, as long as the end goal is getting the athlete better, go ahead, lay it out there.
I agree, and I think that goes back to the culture of the team, of the atmosphere, the organization, of the business, is that you have to create that. You have to lead from the front, but you have to have a high expectation for that. Going back to our initial convo about I was just thinking about March Madness. I don't keep up with it, but one of the things that I've been watching lately, I don't know if you've kept up with it, the Facebook series they're doing right now in the University of Kentucky. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
Dude, you have to watch it. They're on episode 5, and basically they're defining as the youngest team in college basketball, and they're documenting their season right now. And
Okay.
The coach is a powerful leader. And one of the things he continues to say is, I got to get them to believe in themselves. Like, this team has the ability to do great things if he can impart teamwork, coachability. I recommend everyone to watch it, because it's everything that we're talking about.
Yeah, I forget his name. It's like Calipari or something like that.
Yep.
But he goes down as the most vocal coach in college basketball. A lot of the announcers, they'll always say that he pours his heart and soul out into just the timeout huddle.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll do some, I can't remember the term for it, but where you can listen to him while he talks during the huddle.
A narration. Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. Like
An
mid
audio
game.
narration.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mid game, they'll put a mic on him. They'll put a mic on him, and you can just, how he talks to the team is pretty
I
crazy.
had heard of him, but I'd never seen him coach. It makes me want to be coached by him when you watch this, because you can see these guys getting better. They respect him as a coach. They're trying to be the best, and a lot of these guys through the series are saying, well, why did you come here? And it was always about the coach and what they felt like he could do for them. And it's powerful, man. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah, you should try to tune into some Kentucky games this tournament.
I will. I definitely will, because I have more attachment to it as well. Don't get me wrong, I love all sport. I just, you tend to be attracted to the sport that you played and did really well. I think the irony of sport, one of the other factors we talk about, and we just said this earlier, but the irony of sport is that it taught us how to fail successfully.
Yeah. It comes back to just, making the constant ability to try to get better, so that comes along with some failures. If you fail, okay, you kind of just got to go back to the drawing board. What'd you do wrong? How can you get better? And that comes to the slogan that you mention all the time. You either win or you learn.
Yeah, there's no such thing as failure if you're not able to apply it. So, like, when I would define failure, when I went to a weekend wrestling competition was I didn't make it on the podium, or I didn't win first place. So failure was I set the goal, like, I'm doing everything I can throughout the season to win that. If I didn't do it, then it's only failure if I walk into Monday's practice with this poor mindset, like me not trying to think about what I could do better. That's when it becomes failure, because you limit the accountability for things you could have done better. It limits your ability to grow. But if I take it and say, you know what, I know what I could have done better, so that I could have been on the podium, or that I could have placed, and then you spend the entire week working on those things in hopes that you make the podium the following week. And then really ultimately those turn into what we consider micro goals. And because the ultimate goal what's a perfect season if you come down to the state tournament and you completely lose it, don't even place, right? Because ultimately the end goal is the highest accomplishment that we feel like we can succeed for in sports. Really easy to define. In life, it's a little bit harder, because we all have different motivations. Like if you're in basketball, your motivation is to win a state tournament in high school. If you're in basketball in your college, your motivation is to be the best that you can so you can get prospected out into the league, right? To the NBA. That's success for them. In the NBA, their goal is to sign a good contract and succeed and hopefully win a championship. So like sport is easy to define, but life is a little bit trickier because we all have these different desires and motivations. We said that success was for us is being able to take this idea of turning ourselves into really good trainers and coaches and being able to turn this into something that we can make a living doing and enjoying it as well. Whether that's owning a business or wanting to start to own a business or to take in clients. Like at one point, Brett, you had no clients. And then at that moment you said, you know what? I want to be a personal trainer. And what did you did? You got certified, you built your skill set, and you built on clients. That was success. You've made that position. And when you finally got that target is moved. And that's the thing with success in life is that the target will always move. Like I just bought a new home, right? And the target 5 years ago was to make enough money to hopefully buy my first home.
Yeah, now you're on your second. Congrats, man.
Thanks, man. But for 3 years, every time I went to the mortgage lender, I wasn't making enough money. And he continued to say, you're doing well. This year was better than last year, but you're still not making enough money to get proof for a certain amount of money for me to buy the house. And so I had to keep coming back to that, right? And now, so that target was to buy the first home. I enjoyed the home for 3 years, and then it turned into another moving target, which is like, this house is going to outgrow us. How can I move into a different? And so the target changes, whether it's my personal life, whether it's with the business saying, hey, we've met these targets and what success looks like for me. It's different for everybody. And, you know, we what we do is we're just take these principles that we learned as athletes to kind of make that goal more real in our lives.
Yeah, it comes back to goal setting, you know, just like we talked about earlier in the podcast. And it's like you just mentioned, it's way easier to define it, you know, when you're young, you're in sport. When you get older, you know, maybe the vision's not as clear. You know, you're not sure what the end goal is going to be. You know, you're kind of staying present in the moment. You're doing what you enjoy to do, okay? And just like we progress in youth sports, getting older and older, and it be more meaningful, it's the same thing with everyday life. You know, as we're maturing, as we're getting older, we're like, hey, our end goal comes a little bit more clear, you know, and that just comes into play the maturing process of, you know, growing in life, getting older, you know, pinpointing more specifically where you want to end up at, and then define, you know, what success is to you.
Yeah, and we know that we have, I don't want to call it a hack, but we have the tools for success that were given to us by athletic sport. And so that we know no matter what goal we have in our life, whether that changes or our passions change, that we have the tools to the toolbox to be able to make these things a reality in our own life because of all the things, the factors that sport has taught us.
Yeah, no, I've heard this saying, which you'll probably, you know, get a good takeaway from. You know, a lot of people can consider business a sport and the scoreboard your bank account. So that's good, you know. I think we nailed it on the head, man. Some good takeaways for the podcast.
Yeah, man. So I think my heart at the gym is really to help teach principles that have made us successful, to help people reach their goals. Because ultimately, like we say this all the time, like if they walk in and said, hey, I just want to be fitter, I want to get lean, I want to lose weight. Like if they did all those things, but they become unhappy or they're in major pain all the time because of those, we missed the whole point. Like for us, sport was be able to achieve something great and be happy, right? And I think that's what I'm trying to, you know, portray or to profess, right, as a coach and to our own members. Like being fit for the sake of being fit is not the goal, man. And that's what my heart's at, is like, hey, you're fit, cool, you can do some great things, now let's go have fun outside of here.
Yeah, exactly. There's no point on working, you know, putting on all this work if it's not enjoyable. You know, it comes back to the same we've talked about plenty of times, is enjoy the process. Enjoy the process. You know, don't just be too worried about the end result, and just enjoy what you're doing.
That's perfect, man. I think you said it perfectly. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you guys for listening.
Cool, guys. Thanks a lot, and we'll catch you next week.
Peace.